A reliable leaker has spoiled Nintendo's plans for the next year in exchange for 140,000 YouTube views and some internet clout, including a reported Ocarina of Time remake to be released later in 2026. Of course, Ocarina of Time was already remade in mid-2011 for the 3DS, and while other Zelda remakes have faced criticism for their changes to their visuals or gameplay, Ocarina of Time 3D is generally positively regarded by fans. Its gameplay changes are limited, and in my opinion, its visuals mostly serve as the way you remember it style of remake. While playing through Ship of Harkinian with Djipi's Ocarina of Time 3D textures, I often found myself thinking, there must be a missing 3DS texture here, just to switch back to the original Nintendo 64 textures and be surprised by how much lower quality they were in the original. Of the existing 3D Zelda remakes, Ocarina of Time 3D is one of the easier to recommend for a first playthrough or for existing fans. Where does this leave us with a new Ocarina of Time remake? My personal preference would be for a new remake to have limited gameplay changes, essentially only quality of life or other very minor changes. Most additions from Ocarina of Time 3D should be carried over, notably with the optional gyro controls, boots being changed to items for quick swapping, and the boss challenge mode that you may not have even known about. The game also features Sheikah stones, which served as tutorials or walkthroughs for certain parts of the game. I could take or leave these, but they were unobtrusive in Ocarina of Time 3D, so I wouldn't have a problem with them being in the new game as long as they remain unobtrusive. There could be some new additions as well, but I would keep them small in scope. Some things that came to mind that could be changed were fixed camera locations, such as Link's house and parts of Castletown, that could be reworked into full 3D areas. This would have to be done tastefully, but I think there's a way to make that work. The increased movement speed from the bunny hood in Majora's Mask could be backported to the Ocarina of Time bunny hood. Loading a save could bring you to the entrance of wherever you last saved instead of to a set location based on whether you're a child or adult. They could slightly rework Z targeting, such as making it easier to switch between targets. I think all of these suggestions should be optional toggles in the game. From a graphical standpoint, they should pursue style over realism. The target frame rate should be 60 frames per second, but a 120 FPS mode would be nice to have as well. This was already done in a first-party Nintendo game with Metroid Prime 4, so it's not out of the question. Render 96 is a graphical mod for the Super Mario 64 PC port, which aims to replicate the official 3D renders from promotional material of Super Mario 64, replacing the low-polygon original models. There seems to be much less 3D promotional artwork for Ocarina of Time, but it would still be possible to extrapolate what models could look like without the limitations of 1996 hardware. The Link model featured in much of this gameplay is a great mod for Ship of Harkinian called Enhanced 3DS Overhaul by Corefinder. This aims to take the 3DS model for Link and make it more similar to official artwork from Ocarina of Time. I would expect higher quality assets from Nintendo for an official game, but this makes for a solid reference point to the style I'd be looking for in a modern Ocarina of Time remake. What I wouldn't want to see on the graphical front is anything resembling the famous Nintendo Hire This Man videos of Ocarina of Time recreated in Unreal Engine. I don't fear that Nintendo would do something specifically like those creations, but even replicating the semi-realistic styles seen in Star Fox for Switch 2 would be a major mistake, and in my opinion, a complete betrayal of the visual identity of Zelda. I know Zelda's experimented with a variety of art styles in the past, but high-fidelity visuals, like can be achieved on modern hardware, don't seem appropriate for the series. Despite Twilight Princess's reputation as a more realistic response to Wind Waker, it's still heavily stylized, especially the regions which are covered in twilight that have a dreamlike feel to them that isn't realistic whatsoever. Finally, we have to address the potential for major gameplay changes to the game. As I've already said, I wouldn't be interested in this, but I want to conceptualize what some of these could be and what that might look like. Without going into a diatribe about the fundamental design philosophies of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, the way these games play is incompatible with the core design of Ocarina of Time. Ocarina of Time must have logical progression to its dungeons and story, unlike the open-world Zelda games. Progression of items is essential, so they can't all be made available from the beginning of the game either. One element that could potentially be brought from the more modern Zelda games would be the movement system. Since Skyward Sword, the tried and true spam roll movement was replaced in favor of sprinting, which could feel more natural. However, I don't think the systems seen in Skyward Sword or the open world games would transfer over well if taken directly. Skyward Sword relied on stamina replenishing pickups, which fundamentally changed how movement works, reducing it to optimized routes between stamina drops rather than truly free movement throughout the world. The stamina system in the open world games relies on incremental upgrades from shrines and temporary boosts from potions or food. If they did implement sprint, I would hope for an unlimited sprint that's slightly slower than Epona to allow for freedom of movement, but still giving Epona a purpose. Shrines would be a completely ridiculous concept in Ocarina of Time, but Nintendo seems to love shoving them into all of their new games. I don't have much to say on this idea other than that I hope we don't see anything resembling the open world Zelda shrines in the Ocarina of Time remake. The combat system could also be majorly reworked, but this would overshadow the brilliant simplicity of the Z targeting system. The system popularized an action combat style that remains immensely popular to this day, and you can draw a direct line between Souls-like combat and Ocarina of Time Z targeting. If there were changes made to the combat, I think something like backporting the hidden skills from Twilight Princess would be appropriate, thematically and gameplay-wise, as the Hero of Time from Ocarina of Time should have the skills that he teaches Link in Twilight Princess. I would prefer if that was the maximal extent of combat changes. An Ocarina of Time remake with proper limitations and a fitting art style could be the definitive way to play the game. I'm really interested to see what they come up with, even if I fear they might not deliver what I'm looking for personally. Let me know what you'd like to see for an Ocarina of Time remake. Be sure to rate this video 5 stars, share to Facebook, and make a video response. Thanks.